Hi, this is Morgan, and I have my co-host, Jillian Gotzel. It is Sunday, the 1st of April, Easter Sunday, and we are here to present you Good Week, Bad Week in Crypto. So I will kick it off with a piece of good news. The state of Tennessee, following Wyoming, has passed a bill in the United States to recognize smart contracts and blockchain transactions as legal. And so that's really positive on the regulatory front in the United States. So more and more is starting to happen on a positive note from that perspective. How about you, Jillian?
Okay, well, I'll carry on with the good side. And again, it's also with the regulations and governments, this time China. And of course, China, traditionally, it's banned ICOs and exchanges, but they're doing lots of other stuff too as well. The China's has announced the government-controlled crypto project from the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. They've issued a report looking at standardizing blockchain technology. And I think what China's trying to do is sort of control it, and I think that's very much so, because there's also the China Boxer Blockchain Technology Research Institute, all these big long names. They filed 22 different patents in blockchain technology. That's a lot. And then in the central bank, the science and technology leader, Zhang Yifeng, so he's got a team of 100 people, and he's looking at optimizing blockchain within existing technology. I think that's what China's trying to control it. And he says he wants digital currency to look more like real money. So I think it's a whole move in China. Although they're banning everything, they're also looking at things and trying to control it within the government. So that's more positive than if they were just chucking it out, the baby with the bathwater. So.
And that was sort of the sentiment when they did all the banning back in September. I think it was really to just try to gain some control over what was going on. So 6 months on, it's interesting to see that they're now coming out with a lot of positive things that they are in control of, right? So
yes, it's more positive.
Yeah. On same kind of note, I have a piece of news, not necessarily related to the cryptocurrency world per se, but it is related to China. China announced a new type of oil contract this week. So oil contracts globally have been priced in dollars for the last 50 years. But this is the newest and first time in the last 50 years that an oil contract is not priced in dollars. It's priced in renminbi. And it's to give China greater control over the price of oil. They are the largest importer of crude oil in the world, but it's significant because it starts to, I think, erode the power of the US dollar as the reserve currency in the world. And so not only is cryptocurrency starting to erode the power of the US dollar, but now we see, China making this pretty big move in terms of pricing oil contracts. So, I see it as the continued erosion of the power of the United States. Unfortunately, I'm American, but I live in Europe on purpose. But yeah, so big. That's kind of big news in the world, I think.
I think you're right. I was going back to Europe for my good news. The German National Tourist Board, it's a very powerful institution, the GNTB, they have announced in the tourism sector that Bitcoin is legal tender. Wow. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to, I presume that means that they're going to encourage restaurants and hotels and people in the tourist sector to actually accept Bitcoin, but that's kind of cool.
It makes sense, though, if you think about it, because people coming from other countries, they'll have Bitcoin. They don't have to go through the process of exchanging foreign currency into euro in order to spend it there. They can just spend their Bitcoin and not have to go through. So that
makes sense. And it comes on the back of, in February, there was a report from the German Minister of Finance. He issued a report looking at how to tax Bitcoin, which is, that's going to come. I know people say, you don't have to pay tax on your cryptocurrency, but for it to become mainstream, there needs to be some way of doing it. So Germany's been looking quite pro cryptocurrencies, I would say.
Right. And similar to that, I have a piece of news in the European Union as well. A Dutch court ruled this week that Bitcoin has properties of wealth. And so again, from a legislative perspective, Bitcoin is being viewed as a store of value, as a place where you can store your wealth. And so more on the regulatory front that is favorable to cryptocurrency. Very, very, very positive. And actually, I'll just go on with one more piece of news, which is specific to Europe, and that is that two of the largest exchanges, Bitfinex and Binance, are both looking to move their headquarters to Europe. Bitfinex is looking to move, I believe, to Switzerland, and Binance is looking to move to Malta, and those conversations are underway. And so I think it's really interesting from our perspective, because we're in the European Union. The European Union is really starting to look like it's going to become a hub for cryptocurrency, and I think that would be a very positive thing for the Union.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to America, funny enough, for my piece of good news, and it's Ripple. And I love these stories. It's a charity story. And Ripple donated $29 million worth of its currency to public schools. Now, it was done, remember, in December, Pineapple issued a fund that an anonymous person gave away $86 million, but this is Ripple itself. And it's the largest ever crypto donation, single crypto donation, and it was made by donorschoosers.org. And what happened is that apparently Brad Gartlinghouse, who's the CEO of Ripple, he's been involved with the Donors' Choice before, and the CEO of Donors' Choice, a chap called Charles Best, wrote to Brad and said, would he help out? And to his surprise, they said they did. So they can do it, of course. We spoke about Verge last week because there's no central body, but with Ripple, Ripple itself owns 60 billion out of the 100 billion XRP coins that are out there. So it makes them quite a powerful entity, obviously. And the market cap is 34.8 billion as of yesterday, whatever. It's the third largest coin, but it is nice that they have donated the 29 million, and Charles Best said he will liquidate the funds over 2 weeks so as not to affect the price of Ripple. That was a nice story. That's a nice story.
It's a great story. I think it was on Donors' Choice, there were 35,000 projects or something like that.
Yes, it's a lot of, yeah. I should have said that, yeah.
Yeah, that were related to putting new equipment, books, computer systems, and things like that into the school system. So 35,000 different requests from schools, and Ripple basically said, "Yeah, we will fund every single project that's up on Donors' Choice."
I mean, that's nice because not only is it a crypto donation, which is obviously nice to see, all the horrible stories, but you're right, it goes directly to those teachers who put in requests. They need, pencils, books, whatever they need, overhead projectors, and it's quite nice that it's going straight to where it needs. So it'll actually make a real impact. So it's a really good story.
I think it's a really good story. Really good story. I have another piece of good news. We're going to have to get to our bad news, but anyway, this is a very positive again. A company called Nivara, which is a UK-based software company who are in partnership with Microsoft. And I'm going to read this because it's quite technical. But basically, they performed the registration, clearing, and settlement on a pair of principal protected notes. I don't even know what those are, but they're a financial instrument that tracks the FTSE 100 index, and they took a pair of them, so two different notes to settle them, and one was settled in the traditional way, so through a clearinghouse in the normal way, and the other was settled on the Ethereum blockchain, and this is the first test of this kind. And the interesting thing to note is not so much that it was time or anything that was saved, but the cost of settling the transaction on the traditional financial infrastructure is £30,000, and the cost associated with settling the transaction on the Ethereum network is £50.
Wow.
And so that is very big news because it's the first time it's been done, and everything came out exactly the way it should have. So it was a sort of a pilot, but the real savings to the users effectively, so to the marketplace is it's like a 99% reduction in the cost of doing a financial transaction like that. So it just goes to show you how inexpensive things can become if once things start to move over to cryptocurrency and to the blockchain technology itself.
And was there any difference in the time it took? Was that also a factor, or was that reported on?
It didn't focus. The article that I read did not focus on the time. They, I think, were more focused on the astounding
money
cost, because it's absolutely huge.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's good news. Okay, I'm going to do some bad news now. Okay. I can't wait. This is an interesting little piece. There was a report put out by Indeed. They have a hiring lab report that they issue, and it said there's a direct correlation between the price of Bitcoin and the interest in crypto jobs. So when Bitcoin goes up, there's huge demand for them. When it goes down, people don't want to know. So that kind of makes sense. It does. Obviously, the hype goes with it. But what was more interesting, I think, it's not such bad news. They also looked at the popularity of blockchain jobs, and that remains high. That's impervious to the cost of Bitcoin. So that, to me, although I put it in the bad news thing because it's kind of like, when the market goes down, people exit the job market, but not in blockchain. And that to me is interesting because I think the blockchain, of course, is amazing, and actually, that's pretty a good story. Sorry.
No. I mean, I think, but I think that same thing correlation probably exists in, if the shares of a technology company plummeted, then the interest in jobs in that company would also plummet. I mean, it's normal for things like that, I think, to be correlated. But usually with Bitcoin written on it. And I actually have a similar kind of not piece of news from a content perspective, but sort of like Bitcoin being associated with something negative. The city of Atlanta was hacked last week, and all of their computer systems running the government and the police department were shut down by ransomware hacking, demanding, of course, the money in Bitcoin, equivalent to $51,000 or some very sort of strange amount, which is, the message is, it taints Bitcoin because the ransomers wanted to be paid in Bitcoin. But the reality is, the city of Atlanta got hacked, and that is a problem because these decentralized systems that run our world right now are in fact centralized and highly hackable. And we're starting to see it in the news all the time. You know about the whole Facebook thing that's hit the news. Now, this is another hacking attack on centralized systems. And I think there's probably another one that we're going to talk about momentarily, but you got a piece of news and then I'll...
Okay. Well, actually, my next piece of bad news is in the same vein. Actually, it's the OKEx exchange, which is a centralized exchange. And 2 nights ago, they noticed that there's some very irregular trading in the Bitcoin futures, and they saw it was localized to their exchange. And they're the 4th biggest exchange in the world, and they have daily trades of 1.3 million, so they're a big exchange. But they saw that some irregular future trading, the price was below 5,000, and with the futures on other exchanges around the 7,000. So there's something was going wrong. So they rolled back all the trades. It was between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. They rolled back all these trades, which is a responsible thing to do. Except the only sort of knock-on effect was that any of the traders who had their margins called during this time, they had their positions liquidated. And one per chap, he apparently lost 1.8 million. The OKEx exchange is in Hong Kong. He went to the doors of this exchange and threatened to commit suicide because he lost all his money, wiped out. So the exchange did the responsible thing. They spotted the problem, rolled it back. There was one person they think making this issue, but the knock-on effect on the other traders who lost their money. And this poor man, who I don't think he didn't commit suicide, but obviously was broken enough to threaten it. So you're right. Hacking is in traditional systems and in blockchain systems as well.
Yeah, and of course, this week we had the MyFitnessPal news hit, which is one of the largest hacks ever. Again, a centralized system being hacked, 150 million usernames, passwords, and things like that stolen from MyFitnessPal. Again, problem. It's a problem that this data is in one place and highly vulnerable. And that's what we're really starting to see everywhere, is the vulnerability of the systems that are essentially running our world now.
Yes, yeah, it's kind of frightening. I'm thinking, I think I had that app once upon a time. I'm not anymore, so I don't know if it's a problem or not, but it is scary because that's a very innocuous app. And of course, as the people talking about saying, it wasn't so much they wanted people who are fitness freaks. They want people who use the same password on different apps, and that's what they think they're looking for. So exactly. Kind of scary. So then my other piece of bad news is Mailchimp. Mailchimp, what has got into you? Mailchimp has followed the big 3 into banning ICO and cryptocurrency ads. And I mean, in February, they actually shut down all accounts that were focusing on ICOs. And it's crazy because, as we were saying earlier, Mailchimp uses there are email lists that are on the company own. Mailchimp doesn't own the Mailchimp, the mailing list. And if we as users of that service want to send out, cute kittens or whatever, we should be allowed to do that. So that's kind of crazy. And I know there's a couple of industry associates in South Korea, Russia, and China that are looking to bring class actions against the big three. They're calling them cartel collusions, and they're going to be launching the lawsuits in May. But Mailchimp, what are you thinking?
Yeah, that to me, one thing is social media where you're able to reach people that aren't part of your network or aren't part of your own mailing list or whatever. But Mailchimp, I use Mailchimp, and I'm planning on not using Mailchimp because they're taking away my mailing list is my mailing list. I've grown it, I've nurtured it, and it's my property. It doesn't belong to Mailchimp. I should be able to communicate to my mailing list however I want. And so it's very undemocratic of them. Advertising is something completely different, but it's like taking away your freedom of speech to a business. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. But I really do think it's fear. These guys are afraid. They understand what cryptocurrency and blockchain is going to do for the world, and they understand that it's probably going to put them out of business, I think. And so they're nervous. They're just really, really nervous. And I guess I would be too, but some of the moves are ridiculous. It's silly. I can't imagine that Mailchimp will survive this in the long run.
It seems very short-sighted because I get why they're scared, because it is a new technology. Love it or hate it, it is new. But wouldn't you think you'd be put all your brightest minds onto how to make it work for you? And even appear to be how to make it, even if you don't believe it, have a thing saying, yes, we're looking at this wonderful, bright, new, shiny toy. Maybe it will work. And so you keep people on board, whether or not you actually believe it or not. So it's very foolish strategic moves, I would say.
I think so.
I feel like saying, remember Bebo. Yes, I'm saying, remember Bebo. Those things that were, or MySpace, those things that seemed, or Forever, was it Forever Friends? That seemed like they were never going to go away. Where are they now?
Right.
That's all my news. Mailchimp, why?
All right, and so just wrapping up the week then. Bad week on the numbers. When we talked last Sunday, the market cap of the cryptocurrency market was 325 billion, roughly, and today it's hovering around 250 billion, effectively wiping out all of the growth since the end of November. I remember I gave a talk in LA in November, and I think it was the 18th of November, and the market cap was 235 billion. So we're back to where we were at the end of November.
Wow.
There's a lot of speculation about why it is. Some people are saying there's a lot of people that have liquidated recently in the US because tax day is the 15th of April, and they're due. And I don't know what to believe in terms of what's happening, but fresh money does need to come into the cryptocurrency market. I don't have any doubts whatsoever that it will happen. It's really just a question of when. I have, my portfolio is still my portfolio. It wasn't what it was, but I haven't sold anything. And I hope that there's a lot of people out there that understand that, now is definitely not the right time to sell. Stay in, it will go back up. But anyway, all in all, I think it was a bad week in crypto from a market cap perspective, but I'm very, very encouraged by all of the regulatory news that's really, in my opinion, incredibly positive.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Money-wise, you can't argue. That's a black and white issue. It is terrible. But I do think what I love is that charitable donation. And as you highlighted, there are teachers in public schools across America that are going to get pens and papers and essential equipment that they need for the classroom. And I think that's fabulous. That is, I really like that, because I'm a big advocate of charity, but I like it going direct to source. I don't like the big salaries and, you donate $1 and, or €1 and 10 cents goes to the cause. So that's direct from, the charity giver, the ripple, to the kids. That's a fabulous story. So I'm very happy today.
Awesome. Well, good week in crypto? I think so.
Yep. I think so too. Definitely.
So
April Fool's Day. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. We're genuine.
All right. See you next week, Jillian.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.